Well, I best get on with it then. Thank you so much for listening on my very first podcast episode. That's exciting to say, isn't it? Hello, my name is Mark, and I'm going to be your host on Noises Were Made here. So I want to use the first episode to really give you an understanding of what the show is going to be about, what we've got upcoming, and why we're doing this in the first place. So strap in, get comfy, or carry on doing whatever you're doing while you're listening to this. And here we go. So the main focus of the show is always going to be about music, and the undertow of it is simply based on we all love music, or I believe we all love music, and everyone has a story based around a song or a sound, and it has a connection with us. And I want to explore those stories, and I want people to share them with us, which brings me on to the format for the show, really. And it's quite simple. We're just going to have interviews, and we're going to have great conversations, probably a few laughs, and I just want everyone to be interactive and join in with us. So we have our social pages, and they're up there on Instagram and out there on the World Wide Web. So if you're on Instagram, Noises Were Made, or if you're on the World Web and you go to noisesweremade.com, we're out there. Click the links, sign up, follow, send us DMs, and if you're lucky, you'll come out on the show, we'll interview. As for the show itself, it will be split into two sections. We'll have Noises Were Made, the main show, the main format. But we will also have the ToneChest sessions. It's the 15th time I've said it, and I'll still get it wrong. The ToneChest sessions. And the idea of those is going to be more around details. Details from musicians. What gear are you using? Details around music producers. What format do you use? What software, what systems, what processes do you use? So any of you out there who are interested in that sort of things, look out for the ToneChest sessions. They will be very slow to begin with, very slow to get the episodes going while we get more and more people going. But eventually it'll be a case, ideally, where we're doing 2 or 3 shows a week for each of these series. But until then, everything will be based on the Noises Were Made platform. And Noises Were Made episodes will be series 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Each episode going through, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Alexa, Podbean, Castbox, you name it. Whatever you're using, just click the follow, click the automatic downloads or downloads at your leisure or streams, and you'll be able to follow us from there. So every time we have an episode come out, you'll see what it is. We're going to put the titles up, keep it as clean as possible. So if you're not interested in that one in particular, fine. But we'd hope that you join in and have us anyway, because we'll always have something different going on. We'll always have some interesting people. I can promise you, I've met some very interesting people in the music industry over the last few years. And if any of their stories are like what's going to be coming up, it'll be worth listening to. So in terms of the next part of the show, we would always have people talking about their top 5s. What are your top 5 favourite musical intros? Top 5 favourite songs? Top 5 favourite film soundtracks? Top 5 musical instruments? Top 5 sound effects? Etc, etc. You can see top 5 is a bit of a running theme. That's just something personal. But we believe there is a story in each of those top 5s. And we could spend at least 25 to 45 minutes probably per song. But we're going to make sure that we keep it a straight format so that everyone gets to enjoy it. We don't want to be dragging on forever. So in this process, we've looked at what sort of things people want to talk about, what sort of songs, music they like. We may or may not be able to play snippets of music. We're still looking into that because, as you know, everyone likes to get copyright strikes these days. So there might be some fair usage that we'll be able to get away with, but we will play by the rules. We're not going to be getting any slack wrists unless we can help it. So that brings us on to really the guests, and it's 100% the focus of this. if you are a musician, if you are someone in the music industry, I want to speak to you. I want you on the show. I will interview you. You can promote the heck out of it. You can tell us about your upcoming shows, your singles, your albums, everything you got going on. We just want to have the conversation and have it here so that we can share it with everyone. And this brings us to one of the reasons, formally, I guess, why we started Noise Was Made. I always see episodes where we're interviewing famous people. Hey, listen, if Lenny Kravitz is listening, if you want to have an interview with me, I'm totally down with that. So, but the famous interviews always cover really interesting artists, but not necessarily the support acts, for example. So I would love the opportunity to speak with live bands, studio session workers, and understand the music industry, what's happening in the music industry. I'm looking at an article right now saying the end of the musical business, written by Ethan Iverson, but it's just a real fascinating place we are at music at the moment. And that's where the podcast has come from. It seems ironic to have something about music where predominantly we'll be talking. But I do hope that some of the musicians, if they do come in, will bring some instruments. I promise to minimise how much guitar I actually play on it. But if you are an instrumentalist, come in, do a sample of our intro, make your own intro for us. We're totally open for anything here. We just want to start the conversations and, enable performers, musicians and people in the industry to not only vocalise what they're doing and where they're going, but almost give them a platform and give it a way that it's a very impartial platform, just so that you really can listen to who they are and what they do. So the idea of our ToneChest series, as I mentioned, was to have a more focused podcast. And with musicians in particular, they often have lots of settings, lots of preferences, and lots of preparation required with the instrument and the setup itself, let alone the performance. So we often look at an artist whenever they've been interviewed, and we don't separate the art and the artist. And I think actually that can often be a mistake, because the art itself, there's a process and there's a reason for things being created a certain way. And often very famous musical tracks are actually recorded in not more obscure ways than we can possibly imagine. So what you're hearing on an album track, it might be the song that you love so much, but then when you realize how it was recorded, it could be something that's very difficult to replicate. So as a live artist, for example, how do you replicate a sound or a song that is maybe difficult to do because the gear is prohibitively expensive, unobtainable, or simply doesn't exist? So the practicalities of being an active or a working musician and playing live are very different to someone who goes into a studio. And it's all of these conversations we want to keep having. And that's where the ToneChest sessions, got it right second time, that's where they're going to come in. And we want that to be expanded, so eventually it becomes its own standalone. And Noises Are Made will very much stay focused, as always, on the generalistic view of music, and I won't say the fun side of it, but the human side of it. What are your top 5 songs? Just think about that as we're going through this. Are your top 5 songs things from your childhood? I was born in the 80s, so are my top 5s in the late 90s, the early 2000s, formative years? There's a few from childhood, there's a few from more recent, shall we say, but are they recent songs, or are they songs that you recently discovered? And why did you discover them, and how did you discover them? And that comes back to this article I'm reading at the moment. Say written by Ethan Iverson, and it's based on the end of the music business. And it does raise a lot of questions how we listen to music these days. Spotify is something that we could be using it for podcast. It's something that we've had to take in consideration. It's not something necessarily I agree with in terms of how they pay their artists and the way in which it's paid, and it seems unfair that some companies are making serious amounts of money when the artists and the performers themselves don't. But as we all know, or as many of us will know listening, that is nothing new there in the artistic world, be it that if you're a music performer or an artistic performer, an actor, actress, that's the talents, and the people who have the talents don't always get paid in the same way as those who promote or produce. And that's not going to change, I don't think, anytime soon. But the way in which we can do something here could. And this is what brings me to this sort of podcast, the idea behind it being that we can give some of those musicians a platform. So wouldn't that be great if you hear of an artist on this podcast and you go and follow them, and you maybe go get to see them live, or they make a song and that becomes your favourite song, or just another one to go into your playlist. But by doing that, it's supporting that artist, giving them a bit more coverage. They get more visibility on the different podcast playlists that are out there, and by doing so, hopefully it leads to them earning a living and continuing to do what they love. So guest wise, we really need you. We really need anyone who loves music. And this is one of the premiere episodes, so I cannot for a moment pretend it won't be friends, family, and any of you who are listening on the Noises Were Made or ToneChest network and those communities. So any of you listening there, if you want an interview, drop us a DM and we'll try and make that happen. We've got a few people lined up. We've got a few ideas coming already, but I want to be busier in the next 2 months than I have been in years. And I want to do non-stop interviews, day in, day out. We'll do some video ones, but we don't have to put them out there for now. Everything is going to be an interview that's based just over the audio, which for music, I guess, is probably the right way. So with that, we're sort of 30 minutes in. I want to wrap up this first session really and just say thank you so much for getting this far. If you have, it's a difficult thing trying to plan the podcast. It's difficult trying to figure out what's next. I want to be hosting this, but I want people to interact with. I'm talking to myself at the moment, so that's not as fun. And hopefully with more people involved, we will have a much more experiential show. It would definitely be noisier. I'm sure I'll try and keep it as appropriate as possible, but it will go off piece occasionally because, people talking, that's what we do. So with that being said, once again, thank you so much for listening. It's hugely appreciated. And any of you who know someone, not just if you want to be on the podcast, if you're not happy about putting yourself out there, or whatever stories in life you've got to tell, however awesome a story it is, if you're thinking, I'm not sure, just give us a call and let's just have a chat, because maybe we can get a 10-15 minute interview in there, and you can be maybe a segment on the show. So or you could let us use the story. We can talk about that. So that there's plenty of things that we can do, but we just want to have those conversations. So I guess that brings us to the end of the very first episode. I want to thank you so much for joining me on this. And if you've made it this far, You are awesome. I really appreciate it. Any feedback you've got, Instagram, Noises Were Made, or ToneChest, or go on our websites. And please give us feedback, give us ideas, give us format changes, anything you think of. If you think the mics are too low, my voice is low, so I can't really change that. But if there's anything that you can think of, any ideas, and more importantly, if you want to get on the show, give us a call. So until the next time, when I'm sure we'll have a guest here, the person I teed up, I think they're going to be on here, but we'll see. Till then, anyway, take care of yourselves wherever you are and whenever you're listening. We really appreciate it. Bye for now.